Welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast, where we sit down and have real conversations with business leaders that have been where you are. During these interviews, we'll dive into what it takes to improve systems and champion processes that maximize performance. Each week, our trailblazing guests share their experiences and understanding of the workforce to help inspire change, challenge our thinking, and share what it takes to successfully travel the road to profitability. Now here's our host, co-founder and chief evangelist of About Time and WorkMax, Mike Merrill. Hello and welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Merrill, and today we are sitting down with Mike Brewer. Mike is the CEO of the Brewer Companies, a group of plumbing companies in the Phoenix area, and also a senior advisor for Synergos Companies, a group of leading construction trades organizations. In today's episode, Mike and I are going to talk about the labor gap that exists in construction today and how it's impacting businesses in 2022. And we're also going to get into some actionable advice on the implementation of an internship program with his own companies and how they're approaching and tackling these challenges. Hello, Mike, and thank you for joining us on the podcast today. I think we're going to inspire a lot of people with your awesome story.
Well, thanks for having me. I look forward to the conversation. We've been doing a lot of different things out here and been really focused on the trade issue for quite a while as far as the labor piece.
Yeah, it sounds like it. We're excited to learn a little bit from your example and gain some of your insights. So just to get straight into things, can you give us a background on the labor struggles in the construction industry that you've noticed in the last couple of years?
Sure. Now, the kind of the history of the company, I've been in the trades for over 40 years. Owned my own bits for about 32. And in the last, I guess, really since the big hit we took in 2008, 9, and 10, we noticed that a lot of people left the trades, retired out of the trades, in the housing collapse, especially. That's where we mainly work, is in new construction residential. And, as the market started coming back, we found that, there weren't enough employees to do, the demand is out there. I mean, currently we're really in a situation that has us just, the need is so intense. It's so big. And what I found, at least in my experience, was that there is just a lack of, the narrative. The kids aren't even considering the trades. And, I've got some very specific thoughts around that. And, it's been good for me and my family. My boys all work in my business. And, how do we go about building that next generation of tradespeople?
Yeah, that is the big challenge right now. No question about that. So, I mean, we've heard this common term coming out of a lot of these types of conversations about the Great Resignation. I mean, what have you noticed with that as it relates to construction trades?
From my perspective, I don't know whether, I think in the downturn, there were people that left and they've been, historically we have ups and downs in, contracting world. And it was such a long, drawn out kind of, the trades just took it, especially in the Phoenix market. I mean, we were hurt so bad by it that I do believe some people just decided to leave. They figured out a way to make a living and they never came back. But I don't know whether it's really that much of that's what's going on right now. I think what I see now is there's just an aging out taking place. And so as people, we continue to age, I'm not a spring chicken anymore myself. I'm 61. Started doing this work back when I was 18. And the challenge that happens as we age out, if we don't have someone to hand that knowledge to, someone to mentor, someone to teach, then we take that knowledge with us. And I think that that's really a challenge the trades are, right in right now.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and is certainly what we're seeing here in our market. And as I talk to other customers or companies at trade events or conferences, hearing a lot of the same thing, almost no matter where they're from. Even in Canada and other countries are still having similar challenges to us. So as far as measures that we can take or approaches that we can at least try or attempt to invoke here, what recommendations or thoughts do you have on addressing this?
I go to all the way back. So I graduated high school in 1978. And about that time, there was a fundamental change taking place, and it was basically called computers, home computers. Technology was coming on the scene. And I think that there was a real need at the time. Um, this is all my narrative about it, but basically, the colleges did a really good job. They figured out how to attract more people to go to college. And they needed more people to learn more about technology and more about college. And so they came up with a marketing campaign and realized that it did such a great job that they stuck with it for 40 plus years now. And that's just that it's turned into everyone needs a college education. And I have a real problem with that because I don't believe that. I believe that that's one way you can have a career is going to college and getting educated. But the trades are just an alternative way to get educated and have a great career. And so, some of the things we've done here locally in Phoenix. So internally, our own shop and our own business, we ended up starting a school, and we can talk more about that later. But I think that it's really come down to not just in Phoenix, not just in Arizona, because I've seen other programs around the country, but it's really about a competing marketing narrative, basically, to the youth of our nation. And what we've done in Phoenix, I guess we're in our fourth year now. About 6 years ago, I hired an attorney to help me work on trying to basically, go much broader with the message. I needed help. I can't do, as a single contractor, I could only do so much. I can speak about it, I can talk to people about it, but we needed more people talking about it. And so basically, we ended up getting involved with the legislative commerce committee. They did a couple of 3 tours around at some of the trade, um, high school schools. Most of them have lost all their shops. All the local high schools have, but there's a couple here in town, um, Westmec, and there's an East Valley school as well that kids will truck over and they'll do some of the auto mechanics. They'll do some of the um, salon stuff, but they also had some of the trades there. And so a lot of people there, but the problem is just serving one small part of town. And so ultimately, by going down this path, I was introduced to some other people. The Greater Phoenix Chamber got involved, and ultimately, what came out of it is what we call Build Your Future Arizona. And that effectively is a $3 million marketing campaign that was funded by the trades companies that decided that, this is a pretty important topic. And so you can sign up for it. You can add your dollars to the pot, if you will. And it's a marketing campaign that really is, a lot of people like to say, hey, it's aimed at the kids out there. It gives them a way that they can go look on their computers, on their phones about the opportunities in the trades. That's absolutely true. I think bigger than that, though, is that it's a place that parents can actually go and take a look at what's available, take a look at what the earning potential is in the trades, and kind of do that on their own time in their own confines, be it at home or wherever. If they're at work and they happen to be on the computer at break or something, they can take a look and say what, because these jobs are great paying jobs. These aren't, there's, and again, I'm an education supporter all the way around, from community colleges to universities to the trade schools, all of them. They're just alternative ways to have a career. But I think that because the colleges have done such a great job of speaking to everyone needs a college education, that as parents we grow up saying my kid's going to get a college education, my kid's going to get a college education, and they discount entirely the trade narrative, and they're not even considerate of it. And what ends up going on is these kids a lot of them go to college, a lot of them end up with a lot of debt. They come out with a degree in something that they can't make a living doing without having a two-person household doing it. And the trades are just the opposite of that. Typically you get paid to learn, you learn along the job, and you come, whether it be like my program, 6 to 9 months versus a 4 year program. But at the end of the day, you're making somewhere between 60 and $100,000 a year, depending on the trade you're in and the market you're in and how what kind of work you're doing. And I look at that and think, what a great alternative. And oh, I don't have any debt because they taught me while I was earning. And now I have a trade that no one can ever take away from me. And so that's one of the things, like I say, that the it's been successful. Like I say, we're starting our fourth year. Pretty much everybody that signed up year one, it was a 3 year deal, uh, have renewed, and they're going to continue because we're seeing some good results from it. Um, it's of course in social media now, they can hit, they can measure hits, they can measure people being on a page, they can measure all that. And so we know people are looking at it. We know that, it gives, the parents are using it, the kids are using it. But I think one thing I missed there was that what it really does, it gives the high school counselors some cover, the high school teachers. I've been to, many of these meetings that we pitched this, trying to get people to fund it. Um, School teachers would be in the audience. And at the end, they'd come up to you and say, Mike, you just don't know how dead on you are. And what they're talking about is, like, even the counselors, we can go talk to all the counselors if we want to, but if you don't give them cover, like give them some alternative, the parents can say, oh, I get what they're talking about. No, these are good jobs. Um, Here's a scenario that one of the leaders at one of the schools walked me through. She laughed and said, you don't get it, Mike, because I said, hey, we just need to go talk to the counselors. And what I didn't get was that, little Johnny goes and sees his counselor today. He goes home tonight and he's having dinner with his mom and dad and his sister. And dad says, hey, how was your day? And he said, hey, I talked to my high school counselor today. And dad says, great. What did he say? Well, he said I should be a plumber or a framer or a concrete guy, whatever, anything but college. And in that moment, dad is now ready to kill somebody and ready to go down and shake somebody up because for the last 10, 12, 14 years, he's been telling his kid he's going to college. And in a 15-minute conversation, got completely discounted. And so, unless we give them something that they can rally and kind of hide behind a little bit, like just put something out in the marketplace that says there's an alternative way to do this, that gives those counselors, those teachers, and that's where the teachers just one-on-one told me, nobody knows these kids better than we do. We spend more time with them probably than their parents do most times. And, for us to be able to have a conversation with about other ways to make a living, other ways. We're not talking about people that can't make it in college. It's just that college shouldn't be the first primary place everybody goes. So it's just another alternative way. And I apologize, I'm a storyteller, but that's kind of a long-winded way to say that as a construction industry, we've done a really lousy job of tooting our own horn, of talking about the great opportunities that exist in the trades. And, I like to even take it a step further and say that, it's the first step to the American dream. I was a kid, 18 years old, went to work for a neighbor of mine right out of high school. I worked there for 12 years. He was ready to retire. I ended up buying a couple of trucks from him. It was me and one guy. The Monday morning I opened my shop, and I turned it into the biggest plumbing contract in the state of Arizona that, we just sold the end of last year. And now we're trying to build something even bigger along with some other trades there.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, you said some really impactful things there, and I think that the first thing, uh, approaching the parents with the right messaging is absolutely the first thing. I remember as a young man, just to tell a little story of my own, I had this little girlfriend, junior high, and I found out her dad was a plumber, and I thought, do I want to be, hanging out with this girl? Her dad's a plumber, and I'm thinking of a guy that's, plunging toilets, and I just had no idea, I had no comprehension of anything about it. And then when I was getting out of high school and started my career, I started it in construction, and I quickly learned what being a plumber really meant. And a lot of the most successful people around I knew were plumbers, in the trade. So like you mentioned, there's a great living that can be made, and it's a very noble profession. And there's lots of aspects of plumbing, and most of them don't have anything to do with fixing a toilet.
Well, like you say, and again, I'm blessed that I've got a great team and day to day. So I've been working on this for for the last 4 or 5 years. And yeah, it's good for my company. Yeah, it's good for my plumbing shop. But in reality, it's about the industry as a whole. Last year, we spent over $250,000 sitting guys at home so we wouldn't lose them because the trades around us did not have the capacity to get their jobs done. And if you can't get your job done, if you like, it's all stair step, right? Something has to happen before my stuff can happen. If they can't get their stuff done, my guys can't earn a living either. Well, I can't afford to lose them. And so we actually ended up, having a program whereby they weren't looking for a job anywhere else, but we paid them something. And even though they stayed home, quote unquote, stayed home, they actually raised their hands. Majority of them said, hey, what can we do to help? You're paying me. And so they would find something to do that would help out, even though they weren't building a house, let's say. So, and that's culture. So that was a company thing.
So, Mike, you mentioned a couple of really important key points there. I think going back to the base root of things, and that is the messaging needs to be different. And I think approaching parents and helping them to educate their children more directly and being involved in the conversation is a really key way. There's also, like you mentioned, as construction industry professionals, ownership management, we need to do a better job of messaging that to our communities and to our potential hire pool. What about things that construction companies can do within their own staff to keep and retain them, to not burn them out, to protect that resource so they're not losing people that are leaving the trades? Any ideas there?
Yeah, it's important, obviously. I mean, it's a challenge when we're shorthanded and there's more demand than we have manpower for. Obviously, we're trying to squeeze as much out of our talent pool that we can get. Um, so I think it's just a cultural thing. You do have to be extremely careful with that because, it's what I find is people aren't necessarily leaving the trade; they're just leaving my company, and they'll just go someplace else. And I think it's different, on the new construction side versus the service side. So we also had a Benjamin Franklin Plumbing franchise here, and it's the on calls, it's the weekends, the nights. It's tough to do in a smaller shop for sure. Um, and so, but you have to be very cognizant of it because it just, and that's where I think that, we'll see people will leave our company and go to another company that maybe they don't have to go on call. That's what they're told when they go over there. Of course, everybody has to be on call eventually in a service company, but on the new construction side, I think it is. It gets hot here in Phoenix, and so we start early, and we hope that we try to get the most out of our labor pool that we can. But we've got guys running around all day long. They've got water. They've got um, cool towels, that kind of thing, just to try to help out, especially in the dead heat of the summer. Other than that, the guys do a pretty good job of self-regulating. Um, you, we find that you can't push them because I mean, you can to a degree, but that's really just for the standards. For them to make a living, they need to be doing a certain amount of work anyhow. But yeah, when it comes to, you know, it's just something that I think every contractor needs to be aware of, the over pressure.
Are there opportunities you feel like from your approach that technology can help fill these gaps or help improve at least what you're working with and maybe add to it as far as additional labor pool?
I think that that's one of the things that is probably misunderstood. There's a whole lot of these jobs that are being technically driven. The iPads are, I mean, we use a ton of them out in the field. At the plumber level himself, basically, when they come to work for us, everyone gets issued an iPhone. And the reason for that is a learning management system that we put on there. We also, it's where they learn where they're headed, where they're going to go to work tomorrow, that type thing. Their payroll's all done through it. So there's a lot of technology involved. And I think that a lot of people don't realize that that's kind of common anymore. I mean, a lot of contractors still kind of getting on board with it. I would actually say that probably as an industry, we're behind, but I think there's more and more of it absolutely taking place. And I think it's critically important. And I think that these kids, they've grown up on technology, that they want that to be a part of what what career they're in. And that's just the day to day, how do I do my job kind of thing. When you start talking about advancement, then there's all kinds of opportunities, and there's most all of those have technology related to them, whether it be in the office doing, the schematics, building some of the, because we actually do pull some of the plumbers in. They help with our bid process. They understand that. That's all done with technology. The guys running, the guys in the field, they're on technology 24/7. I mean, they're on it all day long. Um, and so, we're able to capture what's ready, what's not ready, have a record of it. So it's just, and I think there's a lot more to come. I think there's absolutely, especially on most of what I speak from the residential side. And I think even on that, we're behind compared to the commercial contractors.
Yeah, it's interesting. the guys really do want to be more efficient. They don't want to waste time any more than you really want them wasting time. They want to feel like their time means something and is productive. And if you, as a company owner, are not giving them tools that are, efficiency tools, so they can do their job better and more efficiently, you're paying them to redo or to rekey or to basically do something twice that they could potentially just do once. They're going to key in on that they're wasting time, and they're not going to feel as valuable either, right?
Yep. Yep.
So finally, let's just talk a little bit about your more direct approach and kind of your out of the box thinking on how you've approached this internship and training. It sounds like they're obviously critical in everything that you're doing.
Yeah. The I mentioned it earlier. So we started a school called Brewer University. We'd been talking about it for years and years and years, and we finally, I guess it was in 2017, we began a deeper discussion on it, like getting serious about it. And then in 2000, so we put together a plan and we launched in November of 2018. And we didn't have a clue what we were doing. We're a trade contractor. We do plumbing, and so it was not a complete disaster, but much more closer to a disaster with the first class than it by far is today. Originally, we started up. We had 20 students in the class. Um, Let me back up. Before we even started the class, we decided we're going to do it, and then I looked around at my executive team. I said, "Well, who's going to run it? Because you guys are all pretty busy already, and I'm sure as heck not going to do it." And so we had a guy, someone said, well, gee, didn't that guy that he came on as a quality inspection guy for us, but didn't he come out of one of the community colleges? And I said, I'd heard that. And I said, I didn't know if that was real or not. And they said, yeah, he actually did. And he was a professor over there, young guy. And I said, well, that sounds like a good place to start. So we approached him. He said, yeah, he would be interested in setting something up. And so he began asking us questions like, what's your lesson plans? And, what's your curriculum? And it's like, we're going to teach them how to do plumbing. And found out real quick that you kind of have to formalize it. And so basically our plan ended up becoming, it's a 40 hours a week. We sit down, we pay them $14 an hour the day they come in. And so they're sitting in a class, and it's pretty intensive training. And goes through a lot of it early on is about the company, about the culture that we're trying to, kind of put together, speak to them about what a great career they're making, a career choice. Um, and so that kind of thing. But then it goes into some really, code classes, turns into hands-on training, and it's about a 6-month program. It's 6 months. They're actually out in the field. So each of those months they have an increase. They have to, we test monthly. They have to pass tests to continue down the path of the program because it just costs more for us um, on an hourly basis. But we want to incent them to be able to be excited about turning out into the field. And basically, what we do in 6 months, we actually have more classroom time than a 4-year program does. That's typical 4-year programs, a couple nights a week after work, and there's a different outcome. I'm not kidding myself. The learn as you go over 4 years and go in at night and get it's very disruptive to family life, I think, especially young men trying to start a family. But it's historical, but it's not the only way. Again, it's a way to get trained. Ours just happens to be, we don't think it takes 4 years to learn how to build a house. And so we are very specific. Um, our classes are very specific to two of the underground, the top out stage. And what we found is these guys can go through that. And when they turn out, they're on a run rate at, because they're ultimately in Phoenix, their production pay. When they turn out at the end of 9 months, they're actually on a course, or they're tracking to do, the lower end is around 60,000 a year. The upper end is close to 80. Now, these are 20, 22-year-old young men and women. We've had a few women go through it. And what we realized early on, I think we've done 6 classes now, 6 or 7 classes over the last 2.5, 3 years. Um, COVID slowed that down for sure. But what we found was that they didn't understand how to manage their money. So we actually had to add a finance component to the instruction. And because these guys are getting really, really make some real money, and what we want to make sure they understand is that this is about their whole life. They need to be thinking about their career as that, just that, a career, and that gives them ability to get married, have a nice home, raise a nice family, And as I said earlier, if they choose to and they want to, they can go down that path of ownership themselves. And it's not, this isn't rocket science. I was just a guy like any of these other guys. I was 18 when I started, came out of it. When I finally decided to buy the company, um, I went to the community college at night, took a couple night classes, accounting and small business, for I think 2 semesters, and off I went. Well, believe me, I learned a lot after that, but I used the system I think appropriately. As I was a trades guy, and then I needed to learn something, so I went back and used our community college system to do that. But that being said, these guys, they're coming out. The first classes were terrible. The retainage, all that, gosh, probably 30, 40. I think the first class we started, I think out of the 20 we've got 2 left. But the most recent classes we've got, I think they're, the retainage is somewhere around 75 to 80%. So not only have we gotten better with our curriculum and our lesson planning, but we've gotten a lot better at choosing the right people to come into the program as well. And like anything, it's really about identity. When we go out for, like, when we get ready to start another class, it's all through social media. It's all on Facebook and Instagram, letting people know we're getting ready to start up another class, and we'll get anywhere from 100 to 150 applicants. Where that first class, we couldn't hardly find 20 people to try to even go into it. So, these kids that are doing it now, they're all of a sudden showing up in a new truck or getting their own apartment, and their friends are saying, "What the heck are you doing?" And they're telling them about it. And so the next time we start a class, they're trying to get in as well. So, when I look at that, it goes all the way back to that marketing component we talked about earlier. The kids just don't know these jobs exist. They don't know the opportunities that exist in them. And until they see it, not from an old guy like me, but from their buddy that's killing it, all of a sudden it becomes real to them. And they want to find out about these jobs. And so they actually pursue them. So there's a lot going on there. But again, it just, it's worked really well for us. We're excited about it now that we're part of Synergos to broaden that offer. Our offer has been plumbing only. We expect that we'll start producing other trades people as well for the other companies, the HVAC company, electric company, very much like plumbing. And so it's give us the curriculum. We know how to train it. And so we're looking forward to that and excited about the future.
Yeah, it sounds like, I mean, the part that is catching my attention is, you're using social media and technology to market this because we know that's where those kids' eyeballs and ears are pointed towards, and you're casting a lot wider net in a place that potential people for these jobs exist for sure.
And I think, even on that, I think the Instagram is where the kids are, the Facebook's where their parents are, or their aunts and uncles, and that kind of thing that said, hey, you might want to consider this, and not entirely. Obviously, there's people on both platforms, but definitely that's the only place we spend any money is trying to, put it out that upcoming class available.
So there's a huge distinction between what you're doing here and what a traditional 4-year, construction management degree would be at a university. What about the difference between what you're doing and then just a typical apprenticeship program, just so maybe the listeners can understand?
Yeah, I think that again, it's intensive training. I mean, it's 40 hours a week. If you don't show up on time, you're gone. We're paying you an hourly wage to sit in a chair and learn, and we expect you to be there and committed. And so, it's, a little side story. We happen to be starting a class. I guess it was August, either August last year or the year before, but because of COVID, we couldn't have, we have 36, we have space for 36 people in a room, but because of COVID, we went to half that because of the spacing requirements. And so we said, well, we know when we start a class, there's always 3 or 4 that fall out within the first month, just the way it goes. And so we want to maximize the 18 chairs. So we ended up, I forget how many we started with. I want to say there's 24, 25 kids, knowing we had to get to 18. Well, they took them straight out instead of coming in. They came in for like the first day. They tried to space. They had a quick conversation. Said, so we're going to go out. So they went out in the field. So they had the outdoors and social spacing. They went out on a job site, and basically it was like a boot camp. They ran for a week, and these guys were out in the heat, out in the sun, and basically it was like, pick that pipe up, move it over there. Now you pick that pipe up, move it back over there. And I mean, and it's hot in Phoenix. Like, you need to know and understand, especially when this thing is starting in August. So I think over the first night, I think one guy called in and said, yep, not for me, I'm out. Um, the interesting part was that we expected to have more not make that week. Um, at the end of the week, when they had to actually make, like, intentionally make cuts, there were kids there that were in tears because they wanted to be in the program so bad, and we physically could not have them. I mean, that's hard. That is, we hated that because, our intention is to get everybody out the other end. Of course, the next class we started, those are the kids that got first shot because they had already shown that they absolutely wanted to be a part of the program. So, it's just things like that. I mean, it's an intensive training relative to, like you say, a historical 4-year apprenticeship program is typically you've got a job someplace and you're coming in the evenings to go to class, and it's a couple of nights a week for 3 or 4 hours. I did that. I actually worked for a union shop when I first started, and it just, the problem with it was I was already in the trades for, I think, 8 or 9 years by the time the local here in town allowed anybody to come in, and they were doing it for the same reasons. They realized that there's people retiring and we're not replacing them, and so they finally opened up a program. But and again, this isn't a union or non-union conversation. That's just about the trades, the industry as a whole. Um, you know, they'll never convince me that it takes 4 years, and I'll never convince them it can be done in 6. It's just the way it is. But there are, because of the way we've done it, it's a huge investment. I mean, a huge investment. When we finally ran the numbers, the reason it works is because of the return you get as quick as you get it. And so, yep, that first 9 months is almost 100% cost. But after that, all of a sudden, you've added a bunch of people to your workforce, that we didn't add a whole bunch of superintendents to take care of. They're already there. So the dollars they produce were more valuable dollars in revenue, is what we found. And so you do actually get a return much quicker than you would expect.
Well, and look at them, their wage. How much quicker are they earning more money? How much more value? And you start stacking that up, and you're talking somebody might be able to retire at 45 instead of 60. you know.
Well, I don't know if I actually haven't done the math on that, so I would speculate not that, but everybody's got a different opinion on what it takes to retire. But no, it is. They are earning, their earning capacity is very, very quick. They definitely are earning a big income. And, if you teach them how to manage it, and it's really interesting how people kind of orient to a savings account. And, I share a little story with them. Like, first time I got to the big pivotal first number, I guess, was $10,000 in savings. Man, all of a sudden you become very, very stingy with those dollars. The first 2,500, hey, I'm going to go buy that new whatever, shotgun, motorcycle, whatever. But when you finally do actually get to that point, all of a sudden, man, you don't spend that often, and it just becomes this game about trying to pile dollars up. And so, it's a fun conversation to have with kids that never thought about making a lot of money. And these are kids that, they came to work for us. They were living on $14 an hour because that's what we paid them to sit down, and they lived there for a while. And all of a sudden, they're making real money within 9, 10 months. That's a huge swing and a huge shift. And so they need some education around financial management to, take care of those dollars.
Yeah, I love that too. And I mean, even high schools don't do a good job anywhere I've heard of that, on that fiscal financial responsibility that, so many people lack and learn how to figure that out and navigate the very hard way. Right.
Well, I think, because I thought back and I can't remember it either, but, then I talked to my kids like, no, they teach it, but you're 16, 17. You're not paying attention to it. Doesn't mean anything to you at that point. So, mom and dad are still feeding you. You're still living in their house. So you're not paying attention to that financial aspect of things so much. But anyhow, yeah, it's a great program. Again, I think that more more contractors need to start thinking about doing their own in-house training. The historical, so again, just real quick, historically, we always train people. We always had somebody came in, hey, you go ride with him and you go ride with him. The problem that we found with that relative to what we ended up with was that you go ride with, Joe, and you learn all Joe's traits. And then you go run with Sam and you learn Sam's way of doing things. And it's not the way I want it done as the owner necessarily. It's legal, it's code, but it might not be the most efficient and effective way to do it. And so what we have taught these guys is they only know how to do it one way. And they learned it the way we want them to know to do it. And so, there's just a whole bunch of things like that that, unexpected outcomes. I think another one was the camaraderie that's created when you have 20 guys in a classroom working together and learning together. You end up with a whole bunch of workforce that likes each other, and they're not competitors as much as they are buddies. And so, it just, again, some really interesting things happen when you put a class together like we have. Again, it's a big investment. Don't get me wrong, but so whichever way you can do it, whether you're a smaller shop and you can't afford to do what I've done, maybe you do a formal in-house 1 day a week, or maybe it's a half day a week or something to start. And you're trying to get people on the same page, but it's really just what I find with a lot of contractors I talk to is it's somebody else's job to train those people that they need. They don't want to do it. They don't want to take the time, make the effort. And as the industry as a whole, we've got to, each of us as owners, at least reflect on it and be conscious about the decisions you're making, not just be categorical about, I just need to hire somebody that already knows how to do what we do. We all, I feel, are tasked with, we owe it to the industry that's been good to us and our families to give back to that industry. And the way to do that is to, help build that next generation of, tradespeople.
That's fantastic. Well, it's been a very enjoyable conversation. I've really loved listening to your wisdom, and I know that our listeners will have quite a few takeaways for themselves as well. So thank you for joining us today. It's been a lot of fun.
You bet. Anytime.
So just to wrap up, I do like to end on just a couple more personal questions. So what's something, Mike, that you're grateful for in your professional life?
Wow. Um, I guess probably the relationships I've made, and not just at the builder level or president's level, anything like that, all the way down through other trade owners. Um, whether they're the plumbing contractor, whatever contractor they are, just I've made some really, really good friends. I've had some really good mentors along the way. And then it does go all the way down to, it's really tough when you have 400 employees to know every employee. In fact, for me, it's physically impossible. But I've made some very, very good friends that, I mean, I've got people that have worked for us for 20, 25 years. And, yep, we work together. Yep, we're employed, but we're friends as well. And, knowing a little bit about them and their families, it's just, it's knowing that the decisions we make, and again, I mentioned earlier that I have an executive team. We got to a point where I didn't want to be the guy making all the decisions because we affected so many people that ate dinner every night because of decisions we made. And so, it was one of those things that you start feeling this sense of responsibility, I guess, because there's so many people depending on you to, take care of give them an opportunity to take care of their families is a better way to put it.
Yeah, that's deep, and I appreciate you being personal and sharing that. I can relate to that, and I know many others can as well. We've had conversations similar, and it's a lot of responsibility we take on ourselves when we lead teams like this and impact families. So, last question. So, when Mike Brewer puts his cape on in the morning, getting ready to be a superhero, what's that superpower you're getting ready to put in place?
Gosh. The I stumble with it, I guess, because the so I'm a humble guy, very successful. We grew a big company, but I know I didn't do that. I know I did it because of the people around me, and so I think that probably um, superpower wise, that I'm a pretty strategic thinker, pretty logical guy. But I think bigger than that is like finding the right people to do the job, and then letting them do their job. Get out of the way and let them do their job. It may not be exactly how I would do it, but I don't think the same way everybody else thinks, and wouldn't expect that they would think like I do. So, it's one of those things that once you find the right person for the right role, to give them the autonomy to operate and let them go do that. They're going to make mistakes. Great. It's not a You don't fire them over it. You sit down and you have a conversation about it, and they learn from it. Maybe you learn something from them, and you say, when you walk away, you say, now I understand why they did it that way. So it's really about that open communication and listening to other people. Um, so I don't know if it's a superpower or not, but it's being strategic and being open to other ideas. I think is a big important thing to do as an ownership.
Well, I can't think of any better advice to give other business owners. I really appreciate that and appreciate your wisdom and sharing a little bit of your time with us today, this morning.
Well, thank you.
All right. Look forward to connecting again down the road. And in the meantime, best of success in all your endeavors.
Great. Thanks a bunch.
Thank you for joining us today on the Mobile Workforce Podcast, sponsored by About Time Technologies and WorkMax. If you liked the conversation we had today, or were able to learn anything new or helpful, please make sure to follow us on our WorkMax page on LinkedIn and on Instagram at WorkMax_. And subscribe to the show on iTunes or your preferred podcast platform so you will never miss another insightful episode. Also, if you enjoyed the podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating and review and share the show with your friends and colleagues. Your support means the world to us and will allow us to continue providing impactful information with others looking to improve their results in their business and, in turn, their life.